Moon. Wait a minute. Don't talk about the hunters. Wayne Pacelli is here with us, the president and chief executive officer of the Humane Society of the United States of America in Michigan. And first of all, welcome to our studio. Glad to have you here.
Great to see you.
There's a reason you're here in Michigan, and that is to protect the wolves. Now, wait a minute. This is almost Halloween. I've seen those movies with werewolves. They're fearsome, scary creatures, aren't they?
Well, you know, that's the legacy, the cultural legacy that we're dealing with, that there is an irrational fear of wolves that's driven by fairy tales. Mm-hmm. What we've learned more recently in science is that wolves are very wary of people. They stay away. They're almost never involved in any menacing practices toward people. And they have a very beneficial ecological effect. They control the populations of the hoofed animals and the beavers and other animals that can actually cause some economic damage. They have a beneficial effect even on the forest because of their effect on these other species that have an impact on the forest. They control deer populations and limit deer auto collisions. They are an economic driver. People go to the UP. They certainly go to Isle Royale National Park, where I spent many months years ago.
Did you?
To see the wolves. And yeah, I was a park ranger there in the 80s. And, you know, I went up there because I was fascinated by the wolves. I think it's a very great success story that the wolves are coming back. They just got off of the endangered species list, but they're still a small recovering population. And right after they got off the endangered species list, the state rushed to open a trophy hunting season on them. Now, it's very important to realize that you can already control problem wolves. If there's a wolf that's threatening livestock or, you know,
like any other animal, I guess, right?
Yeah, like any other animal. This is not an absolute sort of protection for wolves that we're suggesting. We support selective control, but we're against the idea of people going out in the wilderness, in national forests where wolves aren't bothering anybody and shooting them for trophies because, you know, unlike deer hunting, where, you know, which is a big, proud tradition in Michigan, and you eat the deer if you're a responsible hunter, nobody eats a wolf. You don't eat a dog. So you're not eating a wolf, so what's the point of the whole thing?
I suppose it sounds a lot sexier to say you went on a wolf hunt, and then if you're that kind of person, to have a wolf, a taxidermied wolf. And like you say, culturally, it seems sort of more mysterious, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is that thing.
But there aren't that many, right? I mean,
650 in
the
whole state. And, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, we're a powerful species. I mean, we're the dominant species on the planet. Here's another animal that's kind of a predator. If we can kind of take one of those, then it says something about us. I think that's the psychology in people's head. Mm-hmm. But frankly, it's a very small number of people who are interested in doing it, yet it creates a lot of damage for wolves. And I think our position is, let's give this population some time to recover. This was a rush to judgment by the legislature on this issue. And actually, Michael, there's something larger at work here. Proposal 1 and Proposal 2 on the ballot, which we're opposing and we're urging voters to vote no on, is more than about wolves. We had a referendum to question the idea of this rush to judgment on wolves. The legislature didn't allow that to play out and allow people to vote on this alone. Mm-hmm. They passed another bill through another route to try to give all of the authority to move any species from the protected list to the game species list to the Natural Resources Commission, which is a 7-member group of political appointees. Now, you know, it's a fine group, but this is a big change in our policy in the state. The legislature has had the authority to do this. It gets input from all stakeholders, and there's a safety valve that citizens have the referendum option to question and nullify the actions of the legislature. There's no recourse with the Natural Resources Commission. So we think this whole thing is a power grab. It's an attempt to give this decision-making to a small group of people and to prevent the citizens of Michigan from deciding this issue. That's why we're no on Proposal 1 and no on Proposal 2.
You know, it's interesting because there was a movement also to have a ballot proposal to move minimum wage up to $10.10, and the legislature acted swiftly to raise minimum wage to 9-something. And thereby kind of cut the legs right out from the minimum wage. It's a similar arrangement.
Well, there have been a whole series of these issues. There was the emergency manager issue. There's the minimum wage issue. There's the wolf issue. And again, wherever you are on the merits of these issues, and these are debatable, important policy issues, why is the legislature entirely substituting its judgment for the people of Michigan? You know, the Constitution gives the structure and function of state government and representative democracy, but there's also in the Constitution an initiative and referendum process to allow the people to decide these issues. So why, after our side qualified a referendum, do we have this action by the legislature to go around them and do another proposal? And now they passed a third proposal after these wolf hunting groups got a measure, qualified. The legislature went ahead and approved it without allowing it for the people. So 3 times they've subverted the instincts of people.
So here's the part I don't understand. 1 and 2. So you're going to vote. You want, in order to preserve the wolves and cancel any wolf hunting, vote no on proposal 1 and 2.
Yes, because number 1 basically nullifies the action of the legislature that moves the wolf from the protected list to the game species list.
It's going to get confusing in the language, it sounds like. Huh?
It's a little confusing, and what we're essentially doing is saying, do you approve of the legislature, making the wolf a game species? And we're urging no. It's not absolute protection, as I said, because you can still do damage control, selective control of any problem wolves. The second one is, do you want to cede all authority to move any species from the protected list to the game species list to the Natural Resources Commission, the 7-member political appointee? And we want to say no to that. So the second one is actually much farther reaching because it deals with any species. I mean, they could move sandhill cranes that are protected species to the game species list. And again, this is an issue of the legislature is not the perfect body to do everything. We don't like what they did on wolves, but this has been a decades-long tradition in the state of Michigan to give the legislature the authority to make these decisions informed by all the different parties and not to just hand this off to some group of political appointees.
Let me ask you this in the minute that we have, and then we'll continue after the break. But if Proposal 1 and Proposal 2 go down with no votes, what happens next?
Then in March, that third measure to give the NRC authority is set to take effect, but there's a lawsuit challenging it that we'll be filing because it violates the single subject rules. They aggregated the Natural Resources Commission authority with funding for control of the Asian carp and also giving away hunting licenses to veterans. You can't bundle those 3 things together. It violates the Constitution.
The government's good at bundling, aren't they?
Yes.
Or what do they? There's a term for it where they put all kinds of things to dress up a bill like a Christmas tree by the time it comes out. We'll continue with Wayne Pacelli. Stay right there, if you will. It's Michael Patrick Shields all across Michigan.